morning, everybody. I'm honored, and it's great to be asked to talk to you today. My name is Léon Bouwman. I've been working the last 3 years as a publisher at Newschool Media. Newschool Media is one of the biggest magazine media publishers in the Netherlands. And I was supposed to say that we are the biggest independent magazine publisher in the Netherlands, but that's no longer the case because we are being taken over by another company. And that's a bigger listed company, actually a Belgian company called Roularta Media Group. So we're not the biggest independent magazine publisher in the Netherlands anymore. From beginning of March, when the deal will be signed, we'll be part of Roularta Media Group. Maybe you heard about it. It's a really big company. I'd like to talk to you today about two topics. One topic is the way we transformed one of our major titles, brands, into an international brand. One of our major publishing or magazine brands into an international brand. And the other topic I want to talk to you about is the way we innovate, or better, we're forced to innovate because of COVID. So my tagline is best performance ever. It's a little bit of showing off, but it's really true. Best performance ever of Newschool Media despite COVID and lockdowns. And we had numerous lockdowns in the Netherlands, of course, in a lot of other places in the world. Maybe first of all, a quick scan of our company, Newschool Media. We publish about 20 magazine media brands, mostly special interest brands. And we publish brands titles about cooking, about cycling, royalty, home decoration, gardening, do-it-yourself fashion, etc. We'll take a close look at our brands a little later. Every brand has several extensions, of course. So we have websites, we have apps, we have events, and e-learning programs. That's something we just started with. Newschool has about 180 employees and about 400 freelancers. And as I told you, our company is actually being bought by a listed Belgian media company, Roularta Media Group, and expected to close this deal in March, beginning of March. Maybe something interesting, which I'll talk to you later about as well. We started in 2014 with international publishing, and we have now magazines available in 7 different countries and in 5 different languages, which is an interesting extension of our business model. Closer look at our main brands might interest you. The first one is on the left is called Beleggersbelangen. So the title is in Dutch, of course. It's a weekly magazine actually on finance, stock market, etc. Finance, personal finance. And of course, it's a weekly magazine, but also a magazine, a website. We organize several seminars, events, and it's really an authority on the Dutch financial market. Travel, Columbus magazine is about traveling. Delicious magazine is actually a licensee from NLM in Australia, News Live Media, and it's a magazine for the better home cook. It's the leading magazine about food, cooking, and eating, and it performed actually really well the last couple of years, and well, mainly because of COVID and the lockdowns. People are starting to be interested in home cooking more than they were before. EW is a weekly magazine. It's called Elsevier Weekblad. It's by far the biggest opinion platform in the Netherlands, and it's about politics, science, and business. The next one is Fiets, #1 monthly magazine for active cyclists, and next to that title you see Fiets Actief, which is more a title and brand for recreational cyclists. The next brands I would like to just a short glimpse of is Kijk. Kijk is about science and technology. Then we have Knipmode. I'll focus on Knipmode in later in this presentation. It's about do-it-yourself fashion, sewers, and it's really a leading title authority in the Netherlands in that domain. Knip Kids is the same, but then about sewing for children, children fashion. And then we have Motor 73 is about motorcycle sport, of course, obviously, and Pro Cycling is an international magazine on cycling sport, and it's actually a license from the UK, from Future. Another slide full of brands. Well, we come up to the last series. Roots on the left. Roots is an independent magazine for nature lovers. So it's really for people who like walking in nature. And we have Seasons, which is a brand about country living and gardening. Well, Formula E1 is obviously about car racing. Then we have Truckstar. Truckstar is a leading brand for truck drivers. Well, that's quite an actual issue in Canada. I was informed, truck driving and all the things that are happening with truck drivers in Canada. Actually, Truckstar is the leading brand. It's a magazine, but it's also a very big event. Once a year, we organize that event. About 55,000 people attend that event, and about 2,000 trucks are gathered on a big racing track for a two-day event. So that's really just more than only a magazine. The next brand we have is Forster. It's about royalty, and Zin is about is a magazine, lifestyle magazine for women of 50 years of age. Last two brands is Simply Breien, which is simply knitting. So it's about knitting. It's a license from Immediate, also UK publisher. We just started that with 3 issues, try to discover if there's a market for knitting in the Netherlands. They had a different partner in Germany, and they asked if we were interested to publish it in the Netherlands, and we did. And after 3 issues, we just decided to continue because it's looking promising. And the last one is Promoter, which is also a motorcycle magazine. Well, these are our 20 brands we have, and I want to zoom in on Knipmode. Because this is really an example of how we reuse our content internationally. Knipmode exists in the Netherlands for more than 50 years. It's really an authority on Dutch sewing market. And but it's also a very complex and expensive product to make because of the designing of clothes, the styling, photography, modeling, patterns. It's really a complex and expensive product, and that's why a lot of other countries or other publishing companies are interested in getting this content as a license. And we licensed this formula into 7 countries through Burda. Burda is the biggest do-it-yourself fashion publisher in the world, and we're licensing this into all these different countries from Amsterdam. And here you see an example of all these different covers in the different countries. It's Russia, it's Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Belgium, France, Scandinavia. Actually, it's more than 7 countries, but Scandinavia is, of course, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and they all publish our product. And it's more or less identical. Sometimes, well, a different name or different logo, different brand, but the content is the same. And we always say that the fashion we design in Amsterdam is worn by thousands of women all over Europe, as far as in Moscow and Russia, which is interesting, of course. A challenging aspect of this international licensing is that if we are forced to change something in our planning or production, which we were forced to do, of course, because of COVID, it affects directly also our licensees, our partners. So if we change something about the product, I have sometimes I have some serious issues with our international partners, and we always figure out a solution because we have a lot of content, and we always try to solve these challenges with reusing content we already have. Maybe some facts and figures about Newschool Media, the company itself. We had in 7 years of our history, we're quite a young company. We had the best performance in 2021. And it's maybe a little showing off again, but we consider it quite remarkable that we did our best performance last year during COVID and lockdowns. And we had a growth of 6% versus the year before, 2020, and an EBITDA growth of 2% versus 2020. And what's quite unique about our company is that we have 85% of our revenue consists of user revenue subscriptions, and we're not that dependent on advertising or sponsoring. That's an extra, and it's an interesting and nice extra, of course. But we're not dependent because our main revenue comes from subscription business. Something about the key success factors. It's always hard to say that about your own company, but what we're really good at Newschool Media is to operate really cost consciously all the time. So we're always looking for the best and the most efficient way to work and to publish, and we're not afraid of taking measures if necessary because of circumstances like COVID or lockdowns. So we decided to cut back on pages in several titles, several brands. We cut back on numbers of editions. We cut back on the number of freelancers, and we weren't afraid to do that. And it helped us to perform the way we did last year. Another key success factor, what we think, is that we digitize in our products, in all of our titles, and that we really invested in e-commerce. And that helped us a lot during COVID because we sold a lot of magazines through e-commerce, through our websites or web shop. Another key success factor is, of course, reusing your content as much as you can. Also internationally, well, that's the Knip Mode example I just gave you, but we have the other titles which we license internationally, like, for instance, Shaikh, about science and technology. That's being published in Norway and in Turkey. So we're always looking at opportunities to sell our content to other companies internationally. Of course, and I'll talk to you about that later in this presentation, develop new revenues such as webinars, e-learning. We did a lot of e-learning experience during COVID, and that helped us also to innovate and create products that respond to the new circumstances. Well, I just put this slide in, but I'm not sure if that's so interesting. It's something about our strategic goals. Where are we working towards? It's always trying to maintain our current revenue streams and increase this efficiency thing. We always have to work efficient because otherwise you cannot make any profit in this business. Same for maintaining the margin in print, and on the same moment investing in innovation and digitization. Yes, and of course we try to achieve growth of digital revenue streams and try to get new target groups, which is really, really, really hard because our audiences are quite old. They're quite 50 plus. And in all of our brands, or most of our brands, we're really trying to transform our brands into new target groups, to younger audiences, and get the product interesting for those new target groups. Strengthening innovation, of course, and the adaptation of your organization. Do you have the competences you need to get this digital transformation you need in your company? Financial targets, something about that. We always consider 20% margin, contribution margin at the product level, always. If a title or brand is performing less than 20% contribution margin, then we have a real issue, and we have to cut back in cost, or in pages, or in specials, or in editions. Of course, stabilize turnover for a greater predictability. We aim at least 85% revenue, what I said, user-driven revenue, and 75% recurring revenue, so subscription-based. We try to achieve a lot of growth online, of course, through the web shops, through digital subscriptions, and some expansion of e-commerce. Well, that's something about the financial targets. And let's focus a little bit on how we did innovate during COVID. So we were forced to innovate during COVID. Let's say that COVID accelerated innovations within Newschool Media that didn't succeed so far. So we tried a lot of innovations before COVID started, and it didn't succeed because there were several reasons. I always call that the limitations of the print rhythm. So every extra activity was always hard to realize because there were lack of people, or there was the necessary of getting a new print special out, or a new print edition. And COVID helped us to accelerate those innovations we aim at. New propositions we didn't have time for or before were or seemed to be possible all of a sudden. And that was because we were forced to try them. And for instance, is one of our innovations is the Academy proposition. During COVID, we experimented with live online masterclasses for several of our brand titles. And during COVID, we transformed these experiments into a new business model. And that's what we're doing right now. And you see two examples of this. Knip, which is related to do-it-yourself fashion, knip mode for sewers. We developed the Knip Academy, and for Delicious, the home cooking platform, we designed the Delicious Academy. Another thing is a third innovation is Echelon. Echelon magazine. That's Echelon is translated as your own country magazine, and it's all focused on traveling in the Netherlands because, well, obviously the borders were closed and no one could travel abroad anymore. So that's why we developed a new magazine called Echelon. I'll talk to you about that later as well. First of all, glimpse at Knip Academy. We had a colleague of ours at the editorial staff of Knip Mode was giving live sewing lessons every month through Facebook, and they were very popular these sewing lessons. So we decided to extend that to a serious e-learning program of produced courses for learning how to sew. And that developed a complete new business model to also attract new, younger audiences. So now the idea and the strategy is that we learn younger target groups, younger audiences to sew before we prepare them to get a subscription on Knip Mode, our magazine, which is on a higher level of difficulty. What we did was first of all, when we started this and said, well, we have to set up an e-learning program, we first checked if there were interesting market partners, companies for a possible takeover, acquisition. And we talked to several parties, several countries, but several companies, but they didn't meet the Knip editorial standard. So we then decided to develop it ourselves. And we are now developing several courses, so starter courses and regular courses on different difficulty levels. And we sell them as a package. So including a pattern, sewing pattern, 10 video lessons, textual explanation, and it's really working out well. The only thing is that it's still hard to reach this new younger audience. So that's something about the Knip Mode or the Knip Mode Academy, and then something about the Delicious Academy. What we did there is a comparable product. And again, we noticed there was a lot of demand for live online masterclasses. At some point, we had a masterclass with Otto Lengi, which is in the world of cooking, some kind of god. And we had about 1,800 participants live in a session. And we noticed that, and we thought, well, we should set up an e-learning program, which consists of live masterclasses, online masterclasses, and produced masterclasses, so non-live masterclasses. And it learns our audience how to be a better home cook, of course. And it's working out really well. We started it last autumn, and we're selling them up till now in a couple of months, I think more than 400. And if we do a live masterclass, we still have sometimes 1,000 to 1,500 participants who pay easy 15 euros to attend for just 1.5 hours of listening and some chatting and talking to a famous cook or somebody who cooks a meal and explains how you do that. And for us, it's also interesting. There are interesting new leads because not everyone is already subscriber of Delicious, and we get to know new audiences in this way to interest and try to convert them into subscribers. That's about the Delicious Academy. Then the last innovation we did during COVID was this magazine, Echelon, in your own country magazine. What I told you, there wasn't any traveling abroad possible during COVID, of course. We have this travel magazine, Columbus, and they came up with the idea to start a magazine just for traveling in our own country. And what the smart thing about it was that we didn't produce any new content. We just made this magazine out of reused content, largely reused content from other titles in our portfolio. So some cooking from Delicious, some cycling information about cycling in the Netherlands from Fiets magazine. So we reused a lot of content from our own titles into a new brand in Echelon, and it sells really good. There's no subscription model on this magazine because it's only produced 3 times. There are only 3 issues per year at this time, so it's only sold through newsstand sales, and it sells about 15,000 copies per issue, which is for the Dutch market quite okay. And that's our third innovation. We did a lot more, but I just wanted to focus on these 3. So the Knip Academy, the Delicious Academy, and this in Echelon magazine. Yeah, that's about it, I think. I told you something about the company, what we did and how we perform, what our strategy is. And I told you about something about what COVID did to us, portfolio opportunities, and how we improvised on the harder circumstances.
How did you develop your selection of magazines?
How we did our selection of magazines.
Yes.
Yeah, the company was developed by part of the company has its origin in Sanoma magazine. So Sanoma, you know Sanoma, which is a big Finnish company at that time, was the biggest in the Netherlands. They had general interest titles and special interest titles, and they decided to say goodbye to the special interest titles. And that portfolio was bought by 2 shareholders, the shareholders of Newschool Media, and they started the company with that portfolio, that package. And Sanoma thought that general interest had a better future than general interest, but I think they were wrong, because general interest is much more it's much more, it has a stronger future and has stronger future potential, I think, because we produce content which helps people to enjoy their hobbies. So it's really a lot more need to know, as I can say that, than nice to know. So it has really relevance and urgency. That was the basis of this company, and after a couple of years, I think after 4 years, there was another package bought from Read Business, which is of course a big retail sphere, big company as well. And they said goodbye to 2 titles. We bought them as well, and they together they're formed into Newschool Media. And of course, during the last 7 years we exist, we said goodbye to a lot of titles which didn't perform on the level of 20% margin we expect them to be. And we always get a lot of titles offered as well to incorporate in our country, in our company, but most titles aren't performing on the level we like to. So we didn't incorporate that many new titles after we started.
Alison McGrain asks, what inspired your company to begin reusing content internationally? What was the most important thing that helped you break into new markets?
That's an interesting question. I think that we discovered, we didn't discover, we knew it, we noticed it ourselves, that producing the content for a title as a brand as Knip Mode is really, what I said, complex and really expensive to make. And so we realized that there should be a market for other companies internationally in the same business, in the same domain, which aren't capable of producing this content, this kind of content themselves. So that's what made us think in this direction of maybe we can reusing this content internationally.
Waking Chan asks, when you say your business model is 85% subscriptions, are these print subscribers?
Yeah, it's print subscribers. Yeah. And we have a big, well, probably everybody has, but we have a big marketing department which doesn't do anything else but trying to keep these subscribers in and get new leads to maintain the level of subscribers we have. And this is big machinery, a big marketing machine who does that, and which is I think the most important department in the whole company.
Right. Okay. What digital revenue streams do you see the most growth in?
Well, I see the most growth in at this time in our company these online events and e-learning and masterclasses. We're still developing digital content revenues in terms of paywalling, registration walling. We're working on that now, but that for two titles we already have paywalling, so that functions. But the biggest growth at this time is the online masterclasses, online events. People are really, through COVID, because of COVID, used to paying for an online event of 1.5 or 2 hours to get some information, and that didn't work out that way 3 years ago.
In most of Europe, compared to Canada, the bulk of sales comes from newsstands, and the lower amounts margins come from subscriptions in the US and Canada, because we're so vast. We've got states that have more cows than people. They have to ship the magazines. In the Netherlands, and what's happening in the media altogether, publishers want to have that connection with their audiences and build those fan groups around the brands. I wanted to ask you if what it's looking like with your particular titles. Are you seeing an increase in subscriptions and loyalty and those groups that want to have the extra products, the bookazines, the events, and what does that look like for Newschool?
Yeah. Well, our communities are our lifeline, of course. So the connection between the brands and the subscribers, they're crucial. What we do in newsstand sales is under a lot of pressure. Why is that? Because in the Netherlands, a lot of supermarkets are struggling with the square meters they have for selling magazines. So there's a lot of pressure on these square meters, and the magazine unit in a supermarket is getting smaller and smaller. So newsstand sales and supermarket is a big outlet, is a big channel for newsstand sales. So that's under a lot of pressure. So that's why we strategically focus on maintaining our subscription numbers, and getting getting the interest of new target groups and new audiences into subscriptions. And that's a lot of hassle, but that's the whole marketing operations focused on. For instance, and social media help us with that, of course. There are Facebook groups. If we talk about this knip mode, do-it-yourself fashion domain, there are Facebook groups with hundreds of women posting things and showing things they made to each other. And these groups aren't owned by us. I mean, we don't even direct them. We don't monitor them. We don't, how do you call it? We haven't any influence on these groups, but they're sort of self-fulfilling self-steering communities.
Right. They're freestanding. They've just grown organically around.
They're growing organically. We don't interfere, and there's a lot going on about our brand, but it's not owned by us. We don't have any influence on the discussions and what's happening in these Facebook groups. But on the other hand, it's fantastic that you're that you have a brand which has a community that strong, that it organizes itself and it's growing themselves without us interfering whatsoever. And the biggest challenge is, of course, to get all these, well, in this case, ladies, women, into, if they don't have a subscription, into our business model, and try to get them a subscription on Knip Modem. But most of them are already connected to the brand, of course. Yeah. But that's the thing. So the subscription business is for us is key. It gives us stability. It gives predictability in the revenue stream. And newsstand sales is really nice, and it's a lot of hassle. And it's very unsure because of what I said, the supermarkets and well, you saw the lockdown, it closed all the bookshops, and we had a real problem with our magazine business or the newsstand sale business.
Right.
Yeah.
Another follow-up question in relation to export, your brand's going into other countries, or let's say a Canada magazine wanted to move into Europe, or Newschool saw a Canadian publication that they would like to license, something like you have done with Delicious.
Yeah.
Would part of that marketing plan of your brand going into another country, or a Canadian brand coming into the Netherlands, would part of that marketing plan be the events and the subscriptions of how that would be brought into the market just from the beginning? Would you be looking at that to say, we're expecting to get so much from each sales pool area? Yeah,
it depends a little bit on the brand, I think, and the formula. We started with Delicious just as a magazine brand. We got it as a licensor from licensor, whatever. We got it as a license from NLM, of course, in Australia, and further on. So last 2 years, we started to think about different extensions of the brand and create them in the Netherlands. I mean, there in Australia, the Delicious brand doesn't do anything with e-learning or online masterclasses, nothing. And there's another in Europe, another publisher of Delicious that's in the UK, and we've speak to this guy quite a lot, and they don't do anything yet with online masterclasses. So we just started it after a couple of years of cooperation with this Australian partner. Do you understand? We just started it as a magazine formula, and we tried to extend because we saw these opportunities in the market. Yeah. So, but it could work in another way as well. If there's an interesting Canadian magazine brand or formula trying to get into the Dutch or European market, why not directly think about what other extensions of the brand are possible to get a bigger and stronger market position in the Netherlands? That could be. Yeah, it really depends on what kind of formula and brand it is, I think.
Yeah, it's good to think big. Like when you're a kid at Christmas time, you want to ask St. Nicholas for a lot of Christmas presents. At least maybe you'll get one or two.
Yeah, why not?
Thanks, Stephen, for that, for those questions. I have another point here related to what we've been talking about. So Alison mentions some magazines have a magazine delivery that comes with your grocery delivery, and a few magazines have done this. Have you looked into this for Delicious?
Yes, we once talked with one of these grocery delivery companies, but it didn't work out. We also tried several things. We tried our own product line, like what did we have? Like sauce and exclusive products in the food domain, branded as Delicious. It was a complete disaster because it was a complete different ball game. Retail business, which we didn't have any experience in. There were products of Delicious with the over the date in grocery shops, and it turned out really disastrous. and it did more harm to our brand than it helped us. And I think the same with working together with these grocery shops, delivery. It's such a different business model that we have such a different product, high-end product. What we make, Delicious, is really a quality product. We took a look at it, we talked about it, but it didn't work out.
That's very interesting, and that's good to find out about. Okay, I have one more question. You might have already answered this, but I'm going to ask it again. Now that we are starting to recover from the pandemic, are you finding your conversion rate dropping, or are the first-time subscribers renewing their subscriptions?
Yeah, it's hard to give an answer on that. It's a really interesting question, I think. I'm not sure yet, because we don't have a real stable vision of what's happening now. It's really interesting to know, but we're just opening up here in Holland. Actually, within 2 weeks, all the measures are gone. So the situation is only from now on really changing, and we don't have any figures, not a real image or picture of what the ending of the pandemic means for our conversion.